Peace, Facebook. YouTube, and my Facebook followers, and my Instagram followers, and my followers on Twitter. I just wanted to give an analysis of. I'm going to take about 25 minutes and give an analysis on an article I wrote back in 2014. Right, you see the title there, Ethnic Cleansing of Black Colleges. I may do one under Trump. I want to see what his executive order. There's a lot of talk about him and Omarosa. They're all teaming together to write to do an executive order. Every president does an executive order when it comes to historically black colleges. And so I was responding in part two to President Obama's um, what I call destruction of historically black colleges and universities. I know a lot of black people don't like me saying that, but I'm not talking about President Obama as a person. I'm talking about the policies. Policies. I want you to just Google what a policy is so that you can understand. But I want to get straight into my discussion, which is about W.B. Du Bois's article, Whither, Why, or Now. I'm doing this on my phone because I couldn't get my hotspot on my laptop to work properly. So bear with the me struggling. I'm going to read this to you, and we'll go from there. Right? How about that? Whither, why, or not? Whither, why, and not. 1960, W.B. Du Bois. He wrote this. This was his last speech. It's actually a speech he gave to the Association of Negro Teachers, which do not exist anymore. They all integrated. So we don't have any black organizations that are advocating for us when it comes to education. They've all integrated, or they've all become prones of the corporate America, which is owned by the elite, the white elite, right? And Du Bois is analyzing the 1960s civil rights movement, Dr. King and them, and he's dropping some serious science on them. And this is what he had to say. And I'm going to stop and pause every now and then and just analyze what he's saying by paragraph. The American Negro now reached a point in his progress where he needs to take serious account on where he is and whither he's going. Yet this situation is sight. Yet this situation is in sight, and it brings not, as many assume, an end to the so-called Negro problem, right? Because a lot of black people at that time were saying if we integrate, that will solve everything. He said, no, it's not going to bring an end to it, but but a beginning of even more difficult problems of race and culture. Because what we must ask ourselves, is when we become equal American citizens, what will be our aims and ideals? And what will we have to do with selecting these aims and ideals? So he's saying once black, and remember, this is 1960, just 6 years after Brown versus the Board of Education, which said that all public facilities must be integrated, right? And Du Bois is saying, okay, when this happened, remember, black people, y'all asked for this. You don't really understand what you're asking for. Be careful for what you ask for. He said, because once you get this, what will be your aims as a group? What will be your ideals? Right? And then he says, the next sentence, are we to assume that we will simply adopt the eyes and ideals of Americans, of whites, and become what they are or want to be, and that we will have in this process no ideals of our own? Do we have ideals of our own now? Do you see those ideals being articulated? Now we have the NAACP, who was fighting against Sessions, but now it comes out in 2009 that the state NAACP, with the approval of the national organization, the national office in Baltimore, approved of Sessions. They gave him an award. The new attorney general, the NAACP, gave him an award. But yet they're saying he's the most evilest man in the world. He's a white supremacist. So the black middle class gave him an award. But now the NAACP is caught Because if he's so evil, and maybe he is, I'm not sure. But if he's so evil, because Coretta Scott King wrote a letter in the 80s saying that he was a bad person, but yet they got paid and they gave him an award, right? Then he goes, this is Dubois, right? Do we have any ideals of our own, right? Or all of our ideals coming from white America? He's like, what is going to happen to black people who were the moral bearers? We were the bearers of morality and ethics. We were always talking about ma'at, truth and balance, right? But he said, once we become fully integrated, we're going to lose that, right? And we see that. We see it. We have no morals and ethics anymore. All of our morals and ethics are the same as white America, right? And this is what he was warning against. Before he leaves the country and dies in Ghana, he dies in Ghana. Again, he could have died in China or Eastern Europe, but he died in Ghana, a national hero, and he's a national hero there. Something that they would have never given him in America. In fact, they ran him out of the country. Then he goes on to say, that would mean that we would cease to be Negroes as such and become white in action, if not completely in color. We will take on the culture of white Americans doing as they do, and thinking as they think, right? Is this happening today? Remember, this is 1960 when he's writing, right? Remember this. This is 1960. Bear with me. I'm holding this up, all right? We will take on the culture of white Americans, doing as they do and thinking as they think. Manifestively, this would not be satisfactory. Physically, it would mean that we would be integrated with the whites, with Americans, losing first of all the physical evidence of color and hair and racial type. Right? We already see that happen. We already see that black people are lightening up. Our melanin is disappearing. Right? And this is a choice that we are choosing. We are choosing this. Right? We already see that pedophilia is running rampant within the black community. Right? Then he goes on to say, we will lose our memory of Negro history and those of racial peculiarities which have long been associated with the Negro. Right? We're going to lose our history. And we see that also. We see a lot of groups coming out and saying, we don't like Africa. We don't like African people. We're not African. We're Moors. We're Hebrews. We're this. And this is what Du Bois was saying in the 60s. As we become more and more American, we're going to lose a lot. Right? And he's addressing the leadership of the 60s, the civil rights leadership that was pushing for this. Right? They have pushed us to the brink of extinction. And Du Bois said this, right? We will cease to acknowledge any greater ties with Africa than with England or Germany. We will further be degraded. We would not try to develop Negro music and art and literature as distinctive and different, but allow them to be fully degraded as is the case today. All right? What is this guy? Bruno? Bono? What type of music is that? We don't even want black music anymore. We see this. We see this with our children. We're not advocating to be different. There's nothing wrong with being different. But we bitten the forbidden fruit. We think being different is bad. And here Du Bois is telling us, warning us in being prophetic. Right? He's prophesying into the future. 1960. Then he goes on to say, as I've said before, and I repeat, I am not fighting to settle the question of racial equality in America by the process of getting rid of the Negro race. I'm not trying to not be black. This is what he's saying. Getting rid of black folk, not producing black children, right? Forgetting the slave trade and slavery and the struggles for emancipation, of forgetting abolition, and especially of ignoring the whole cultural history of Africans in the world. He said, I'm not trying to do that. I didn't spend my whole 70 years on this earth, 80, 90 years on this earth, trying not to be black, trying to forget. Then he goes on to say, theoretically, Negro universities will disappear. Negro history will be taught less or not at all. Right? This is Dubois now. I want y'all to see this. This is Dubois. He's saying this, right? Take, for instance, the current problem. Now, he's going further. The current problem of education of our children. By the law of the land today, they should be admitted to the public schools. And if and when they are admitted to these schools, certain things would inevitably follow. Negro teachers would become rare and in many cases will disappear. Negro children will be instructed in the public schools and be taught under unpleasant, if not discouraging circumstances. Even more largely today, they will fall out of school, cease to enter high school, and fewer will go to college. Theoretically, Negro universities will disappear. Negro history will be taught less or not at all. And as in so many cases of the past, Negroes will remember their white or Indian ancestors and quite forget their Negro forebears. Isn't this what he said this in the 60s, y'all? His last speech before he leaves America permanently. Right? That as we become more and more integrated, right? Certain things are going to happen. Black teachers will become rare. The last 8 years, more than 20,000 black teachers lost their jobs. And in many black colleges and universities, black professors are rare. Indigenous African American professors, they're rare. Even more largely, today, he said, more black kids will drop out of school and they will cease to enter high school, and fewer will go on to college. The black college will disappear. It's going to disappear. In the next 30 or 40 years, there won't be any more black colleges. Now, there'll be black colleges by name only, but that's it. All right, they won't have black people in it. Like West Virginia State and Bluefield State University, there are no black people at those schools. He said we're going to remember more of our Native American ancestors and forget our own ancestors who were taken from Africa. This is all a process of miseducation that we've gone through since Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954. All right? Over 50 years ago. Then he goes on. He says, some are ashamed of themselves and their folk. Many black people are ashamed of being black. Right? And so we make up these mythological theories on, why we're not African and all of this foolishness. Right? But it's really about our education. Right? And this most definitely is not what Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben taught. Some of us are reversing exactly what they taught us. They regard the study of Negro biography. Then he goes on to say, some of us are really ashamed of being black. And we are scared to read black biographies and the writings of Negro literature as a vain attempt to pretend that blacks, Negroes, are really equal of whites. That's what we do. That tends to be the point of view of those of our children who are educated in these white schools. There are going to be schools which do not discriminate against colored people, and the number is going to increase slowly in the present, but rapidly in the future until long before the year 2000. There will be no school segregation on the basis of race. The deficiency in knowledge of Negro history and culture, however, will remain, and the danger must be met, or else the American Negro will disappear. Yep, we're in the process of disappearing, right? This is where we are in 2017. The history and culture will be lost. Their connection with the rising African world will be impossible. Mm, 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 mm. That's where we are, right? Then I go on and analyze what Du Bois said. And I just wanted to take some time out and talk about this. I wanted to read this to you. You can Google it yourself. I wanted to screen share this on my Google Hangout, but I couldn't get a reception. It was too slow. All right. So what do you think? All right. What was Du Bois trying to say to us as black people? Right? Are we becoming more and more white in our ideals? Do we not want to identify with Africa, and we think everything that we deal with Africa is negative? Du Bois is saying we're going to lose that connection. Once we lose that connection with Africa, it is over with for us. And we pretty much lost it. Let me read that last sentence again. He said, the deficiency in knowledge of black history or Negro history or African history and culture, however, will remain, and the danger must be met, or else the black man and woman in America will disappear. Their history and culture will be lost, and their connection with the rising African world will be impossible. I will add to that. Not only will it be lost, they're starting, they've done it. They're going to re-enslave black people in this country. Oh, it's happening. The prison, the school, the pipeline, that's enslavement. Why, you say, well, Dr. Issa, why do you think they're going to do that? I mean, why are you saying that? Because they need free labor, and the gene pool is too strong. And the best way to get rid of them is to just throw them in jail. And the world won't say anything about it. So what are we going to do about this? Du Bois is saying this in 1960. He's being prophetic. And he said by the year 2000, at the current rate that the black leadership was moving, black people are going to be forced out of the school systems. That's what this whole charter school business is about. It's about us. Y'all don't think about that. It's an attack on black people to put us into these other schools, and then they will destroy them. And what are we going to do? We're going to be a permanent outcast in America. So we don't have much time. We got to think. We got to organize. We need to have a national meeting, but I know that's not going to happen because too many black people in the middle class are getting paid. And, a lot of people say, well, it's the white man. I said, no, it's just a lot of black folk doing this. They don't want us to succeed. Other black people. And this is why people get angry at me, because I talk about us. I'm a historian. I know the history of what happened. But look at how we treat each other now. Look at all the self-hate. Instead of trying to learn and build with each other, we are tearing each other down. You see it. And our aims and objectives are becoming just like those who are going out causing war. We're not saying anything about the pipeline protests of Native Americans and their issues. Heck, we ain't even saying nothing about our issues no more. I think we're at the point where Du Bois said we will be. We're there. We're right at the crossroad. And if we don't do something soon, um, it's going to be over with. So what I'm going to do, right? I'm now with this company called Ebonomy. It's a black tech company, and it's a black tech company, first black platform, uh, black social media, black search engine. Ebonomy. Just take out the E, like economy, but take out the E. Take out the C, I'm sorry, and put in the B, Ebonomy. Just Google it, go in and search it and be a part of it, sign up. I'm now on the board of that company. We're going to try to bring a lot of traffic our way. A black platform. Also, I'm going to start teaching classes, 6-week classes for people who really want to know history, understand the methodology of history. How do we begin an argument with history when we don't know the basics? A lot of us, I see us jumping all around, and it's just like being trained and doing anything, computer programming. You got to be trained, right? It's anything. Being a plumber, you got to be trained. So when you want to deal with history, yeah, there's a lot of information out there, but there is a methodology to understanding it. So I just wanted to leave you with this comment in the comment section. And thank you for just taking your time out and listening to what I had to say. Thank you. Have a nice day.